Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back. Let's go around and say our names in whatever form you're happy to share. My name is Jim Stewart.
I'm Tom Bruein.
Clive Hamilton.
Carl Wolf.
Mark Tiller.
Robert Mullen.
Patrick Sermon.
Michael Bree.
Gary Ost. Michael Murphy.
Stephen Chang. Greg Rowe. Marvin Snow. Peter. Larry Wick. Peter.
Dean Bellamy.
Clint.
Jack Bunting. Harley Shapiro.
Gage Loya.
Andrea Schmitz. Rick Eisenstein.
David Margolis.
Richard Harvey Whitten.
David Axel.
Ray Dyer.
My name is Dennis.
Steve Carson. Michael.
Mark Hoffheimer.
George.
My name's Richard Shankman.
Welcome, Richard.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, Mr. Holbrook.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry.
I'm Kaleo Kalagula.
Rich Arnett.
David Lewis.
Anthony.
And that's Jim. All right. Again, Richard is a longtime meditator, almost 40 years. He teaches in the Bay, in East Bay and all through the Bay Area. He has is the co-founder of both the Sati Center for Buddhist Studies and the Community Partnership for Mindfulness and Education, which brings mindfulness training into the open inner city schools. Richard is the author of The Experience of Samadhi. Welcome.
Thank you. So good morning. I very much appreciate the invitation to come hang out with you all. And I was looking on your website at the calendar, and I noticed that there's quite a range of different teachers and speakers who come here from not only just one tradition, but so I'm assuming then that you hear all kinds of different teachings. They don't necessarily all line up, which is fine. They don't have to all line up. So you get a number of different voices that way. And so I don't know what you're used to hearing. So I'm going to come from a particular angle, and you can see how it fits in. I think I don't know if it's so much in a lot of the sanghas here in the West, but certainly traditionally in Buddhism, the idea of Buddhism was to attain nirvana. Don't ask me what nirvana is. I can't tell you, but that's kind of the goal. Or in the Pali language, nibbana. I never think about nirvana. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it just never enters my mind. Maybe if I knew what nirvana was, I would have a different view. But what I notice for myself is that what I am very much interested in is how can I live my life in a way that is as awakened as possible, as loving and compassionate as possible, as clear as possible. You put in whatever adjective you like, I'll say as enlightened as possible. Sometimes when people think about nirvana, it can be like, I don't know, it's like way far away, maybe. It may not be for you, but it can feel that way. You know, maybe that's somebody off in a cave for 30 years or something. and it can take us out of our present moment experience and actually just the experience of our lives. So how can we want to make sure that whatever way we're hearing teachings, whatever view we have, whatever our aspirations are, and that might be different. We don't have time to go around, although we will have some discussion period. Maybe we will want to. But people might be, I'm assuming, practicing in many different ways, different views, different ideas about how the teachings affect your own life. But in whatever way we approach Dharma or Buddhism or meditation practice, it's important that it be in some way that it doesn't take us away or out of what our actual experience is, what the reality of our lives are, and then how does it actually apply for us? How can we, in the midst of whatever we're dealing with in life, can we come to more freedom, more happiness, more peace, a deep place of well-being? Right? How can we live in a way that's more loving or compassionate, or whatever it is? It's actually not for me to say what you're up to in your own lives, right? We each have to reflect. So one of the things I'd like to do, I'd like to take literally about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, and do a short little exercise, just a silent exercise. And so you can participate or not as you wish. And I'm just going to pose just 3 or 4 little questions and something just to reflect on, a few seconds each. And then if you'd like, of course, you can spend more time. We won't have a lot of time. You can spend more time on these questions. So I used a few adjectives for my own life when I said I wasn't so interested in nirvana, but I was interested in living in a way that's as free, loving, compassionate. I said, I think, awake, enlightened, clear, all of these kind of things. I want to invite you to reflect in your own life. You may have already done these kind of exercises. I'll say it in a few different ways. What's most important for you in your life? Or another way to say it is, what is your life about, or what do you want your life to be about in the highest sense, in the deepest sense? What's it all about? Okay, so we're only spending a few seconds on each one. Sometimes you know the answer, and sometimes you may need to go off and reflect more on it. So you can see how it is for you. All right, that was the first question. Second question is, when you look at how your life's actually going, how you're actually living your life, how much do you feel like it lines up with your highest aspiration for what you'd like your life to be about? For all of us, there's some kind of gap, and I guess maybe by definition, till we're Buddhas ourselves, right? There's some gap. So it's not right or wrong or to judge yourselves, but just take a look and see, well, how am I actually living? And I'm not necessarily thinking of what it looks like from the outside, although that might be what you think of. I have in mind more just internally. But however it is for you, how do you feel like how your life's actually showing up or how you're living? How does it tend to line up with your highest aspirations? And more important, after you've reflected on that, is how do you feel about that? Are we all have some gap. I call it a gap between our highest aspirations and just, what it is like as human beings to live our lives. To the extent that there's a gap, how are you about that? How do you feel about that? Sometimes we can aspire towards the highest good in ourselves and recognize that we're human beings and there can be gaps. And we can be at peace about it and still know we want the direction we want to head. It doesn't mean we blow it off. And other times we're maybe not at peace about it, and we can really be hard on ourselves or judge ourselves and create a lot of suffering for the places where we maybe judge ourselves in. Anyway, Okay, so let that question go. Third question, to the extent there's some gap, or possibly you could say to the extent there's some dissatisfaction there, what is it that pulls you in a direction that's maybe away from your highest aspiration in your life? What are the things that kind of keep you from closing up that gap more, whether it's internally or external forces in the world? We all have those, so there's nothing wrong here. We're just taking a look. And then the last reflection is, what would support you in your life to close up that gap, to live more in alignment with your highest aspiration? Probably each of those reflections or questions are worthy of a lot more time than I just gave. I mean, I'm quite aware we just did a few seconds each. The reason I wanted to bring those up is because there are so many inner and outer energies and forces and just so much going on in the world. It can serve us well to get as clear as we can about what our highest aspirations are for our lives, and then to keep those in mind as much as we can, not making a big project out of it. We want to be relaxed and at ease, but just having those in mind to inform decisions we make as we move forward in our lives. Right? So, for example, we're all here today at a meditation group. It's a Dharma group, Buddhist group, but part of it is sitting meditation. So I'm assuming that when you come to a group like this, you see some value in that particular form. That Dharma, to me, is a lot more than just formal sitting, whatever style you do it. But I'm just using it as an example. So to the extent that that's something important to your life, and it'll vary for each of us, yeah, you may be incorporating it into your life to an extent that feels good to you. It's not uncommon for people to feel dissatisfied for how their practice is going. I want to go whatever deep is in meditation, and I don't know what that is, but it's not happening, and so I just can't seem to make it happen. That's not uncommon. So that may or may not be happening. I'm just using this as an example. I could use many examples. If that's true, you may want to reflect, well, what pulls me away? Right? I used to teach for many years in prisons and state prisons. Been in San Quentin, and then years ago in two state prisons down at Soledad near Salinas. There's programs I started are still going down there. And one of the two prisons down there is Salinas Valley State Prison. It's a level 4 prison. If you're not familiar with the system, that's like the worst or the highest level. So for the people who are the most problematic, and this particular prison is actually for people, it's kind of like Pelican Bay actually, where for people who can't make it in the general population of the prison system, they sent them here. So it's a tough prison. So we have a Dharma group going down there, great bunch of guys down there. Some of not all of them, but some of them were I wish I could just get them out. Some of the just most beautiful human beings that I've ever met down there that, maybe they were 18 years old and whatever they were caught up in, and now they're 50, and you know what? They're still paying for that stupid kid at 18, right? And they did put themselves in there. And sometimes there would be, there was frequently some kind of violent incident. Somebody'd stab someone or a fight or something between gangs or whatever. And when that would happen, there's a lockdown. You're just locked in your cell. Those cells are not very big either. I've been in those cells and seen it, so it's a tough situation. So one time there had been something had happened, and there was a lockdown for 2 months. When it's a lockdown, it means you're in your cell 24/7. You eat in your cell, and the only thing you get out for is a couple of times a week, one at a time. You come out in handcuffs, and they lead you over so you get a few minutes to shower. You're back in yourself. So for 2 months, These guys are in their cells. Pretty tough. Couldn't run our Dharma group, right? Our weekly group. So after the lockdown was over, I had the group again. And so I went around and I checked in with the guys. I said, well, how's it going? Because I could imagine, it's easy for me to come in and talk about the Dharma because, right, 2 hours later, I'm going home. I'm very aware of that. So I said, so, how are you guys doing? You've been locked down for 2 months. And it was very interesting. Some of the guys, they were doing fine. They actually had a really, just a deep Dharma or something in there. And they felt like, you don't want to be in there, but, you work with it, you deal with it. And they were actually doing all right. I wouldn't have chosen it. And then some of the guys, as you would imagine, were not doing all right at all. And then I said, well, how's your meditation practice going? And we went around, and one guy said to me, I just couldn't find the time to meditate. And that's my all-time favorite story. I recognize a couple of faces here, maybe from the Sunday night. There's a Dharma group there, and I've told it there before. I tell a story any chance I get. I love it. Because, first of all, you have to think, what did the guy have to do in there? Right? They might be playing cards, you might be writing letters, they have TVs in there. But I could relate to that, right? I get sucked into some old movie. I'm trying to go to bed on Sunday night. I have to get up Monday morning maybe to go to work, and there's some old stupid John Wayne movie or something. I don't know what on there. And maybe I've even seen it before. Maybe it's not even a good movie, and I'm kind of sucked into it, and it's pulling me. It has its energy. We have to be respectful of those energies that pull us. This guy's sitting in his cell for 2 months. He had time to meditate. But energies were pulling him in a certain direction. Right? Right? We have to be aware of those forces. They're not bad. They're real forces that pull us. We need to bring some awareness to those and then line them up with, okay, what's my highest aspiration in my life? What does I want my life to really be about? And then say, okay, what's happening right now? Okay, it's the John Wayne movie. And then I can make a choice, at least. At least I'm not caught sort of unconsciously up in the force. So that's just an example of, so we can use our intention to help us in that way. But there's other ways we can use our intention also. There's a lot of ways forces pull us in various directions that may not be what we want our life to be about. So I'll give you another example. One of my aspirations that I've also shared often is to live in a way so that no living being is ever shut out of my life. Period. That's an aspiration I have. And I get lots of opportunities to see where more work needs to be done. Right? I can think of a lot of things that, I'm going to use a political example, and I'm not judging anyone's politics. I'm guessing just because of two factors. One, this is a Buddhist group, and number two, I'm in San Francisco, one of the most liberal cities in the country. You put those two together, probably most people have pretty liberal politics here. That's not necessarily 100% true. There might be people with quite conservative politics here, right? I'm not judging it. We can have your politics, right? It's just part of how you view life. So I just want to be respectful because I'm about to use a political example, and I don't want anybody to kind of inside go, oh, man, it's not safe in here. So I'm going to bash ex-President Bush. So if you... And so what I want to say is, but my point isn't that my politics are right. I really, really mean this. If you have different politics, I'm trying to use a Dharma example. Just substitute in Clinton. And when I say Bush, and the analogy, the example will work for you. It's not about the politics. So anyway. So I thought the 8 years for Bush were pretty bad. In fact, when he took the presidency in 2000 from Gore, I thought, all right, just calm down. This is not going to be as bad as it's not going to be as bad. Of course, it turned out to be worse than I thought, which is saying a lot. So I had a lot to work with, and I noticed how much I just had so much trouble with that president. And there would be the times, I'm a human being, sometimes I'd get caught up in it. I'd be complaining to somebody and blah, blah, blah. But there was also the times when if I could wake up out of the trance, and what I mean by trance is when I'm just caught up in my thoughts and my feelings and I don't have awareness to what's happening. And can see, wait a minute, what happened to your big aspiration? No living being ever shut out of your heart. What's happening right now? He's out of my heart. In fact, I don't want to bring him in, my heart open to him. By remembering back my aspiration, that's my touch point. I drive this stake in the ground, and here it is, right? And it's not moving. That's my aspiration. I just got to remember to go back. Oh, yeah. No living being out of my heart. Touch back. Okay. Now, even though it's a strong force, or for you it might be Clinton or whatever, now I can start to make a choice to work with it. I don't have to let my mood or my opinion or whatever that energy is be the thing that guides me or that pulls me where it wants to go, because then I've lost any freedom or choice in my life. I'm just jerked around by whatever I happen to be feeling. I don't know about you, but I don't want to let my feelings determine how I live my life. I mean, most of the time they're fine, right? But not always, right? As I look around, I see that I don't know a single person here. There's a couple of faces that look kind of familiar from maybe, I'm thinking it might be from the Sunday night group, Eugene Cash's group, but maybe not. One thing I know is true about every one of us in this room. I'm putting myself in here too, even though I don't know you. What is it we're all doing as human beings? One of the things the Buddha talked about. One of the things that we're all doing as human beings, and it's going to sound silly, it's so obvious, but there's an important point. We're living our lives in order to get more of, I'll say, pleasant experiences or more of what we want, and making sure we get less unpleasant and less of what we don't want in life, right? I mean, it's kind of silly to even say that. So nobody here is trying to get more of what you don't want and less of what you want in life, whatever that looks like. Nobody's doing that. That's just being a human being. Right? Just being a human being. I don't know that you ever stop doing that. Nothing wrong with that either. I think you should try and set your life up. Right? It would not serve you well to not take care of yourself. Sometimes there's forces beyond our control. We can't always control everything. Like if in this economy, if you've just lost your job, that's a serious business, right? And so I don't want to diminish all that. Of course you want it. So you may not be able to control some of these things, but to the best you can, you should set your life up in the way that works. The only problem is that we only have so much control. You could argue that we actually don't have any control. It's a complete illusion, but I maybe don't want to quite go that far. I actually do think that's true, but maybe for our discussion that might not be useful. So while we're going about the business of setting our lives in the direction we want it to go, moment by moment, you get what you get. So the question is, what are we going to do with you get what you get? I think that's really a lot of what the Dharma is talking about. It's not saying don't try to influence circumstances in our own lives. And it's not saying try to influence in society. It was mentioned, I can say something about it later if you want. I'm involved, so I said I've been used to do work in prisons for many years. Now I'm involved in some of these Oakland, I guess I call them inner city schools, but in some of the pretty, I'd say, let's just say underserved communities in Oakland, and really some pretty tough neighborhoods, and we're bringing mindfulness programs into the schools there. So, trying to influence society. There's a lot of ways we want to influence society, right? I wanted to get George Bush out of office, and I worked for Obama to do that. I'm not saying you should go do that, right? We want to overturn this ridiculous Prop 8, right? There's so many things we can look at out there where we want to work for social justice and for change. We want to do all that stuff. And in our own lives, there's so many things we may want to change and fix. Don't stop doing that. But along the way, you get what you get. George Bush did get elected a second term. Prop 8 did pass. So you're going to work, but what's the attitude you're going to hold in your heart? If you can touch back to whatever your own aspiration is, so I just use my example of not holding any beings out of my heart. You'll have your own, whatever it is. Right? Then, okay, whatever's going on, I'm still going to do my best, but then can I find that place of peace, of well-being and ease in the midst of what can sometimes be quite challenging circumstances? So that's kind of maybe the task for us all. What will support me to live in a way, given whatever we're dealing with, that I can be as free as possible. Whatever, we can talk about what does that mean to be free. I'm thinking of inner states of the mind and the heart. There are people in prison, and again, I want to be respectful of their circumstances for sure, but I would really say in their own minds and hearts are some of the freest people I've ever met. And yeah, they'd want to get out. Sure. They're happy. I remember a guy in San Quentin many years ago. He came up to me and he said, he told me that, he said he's having a real big problem. I said, what's going on? He said, the prison psychologists think he's crazy because he's happy. Pretty unusual guy, no question about it. I'm not saying we can all do that, right? And you met this guy, he was glowing. He'd been meditating, he got into, this was back in the 70s when I was going in there, and he was in some kind of, I don't know what, a Buddhist or Hindu yoga kind of group, he was meditating. And he had just come to this place of acceptance. Okay, here I am. Yeah, I'd like to get out. I'm going to try to get out. Maybe, who knows, maybe he's going through his appeals or he's doing, I don't know what he was doing. So he's not going to stop. And what's the actual reality of my life? Can I come to some peace and freedom? It's very important, while saying this, to acknowledge that we all can have experiences where we're not going to come to some peace and freedom because whatever's going on is too much for us, right? If you're dealing with some severe health issue or financial or relationship situation or living situation or whatever it is in your life, or you're dealing with depression, or it could be many, many things. It can be quite strong, and we can still come to some peace. It's possible. And any of you who've sat and meditated for, I don't know, you say knee pain, or your back hurts, you sit in a chair or whatever. We can learn, it's a perfect example, learn to be present with something, as long as it's not too strong. It's unpleasant, and we can still be quite at peace. Same thing in any aspect of our lives. But we want to acknowledge that, what happens when whatever's going on is too much for us? When it's really too much. Right? You can all think of situations that be too much. You know what? It doesn't matter if some Buddhist teacher's sitting up here saying, well, find the peace, have your heart and mind at peace in the midst of this terrible thing that's happening. It's easy to say that, but not always so easy to do. So I want to be very respectful and to acknowledge that until maybe we've reached the end of this path, whatever that is, and maybe at that point there's no limits, I don't know. Till then, there's always some edge. And if the experience gets too much and crosses over it, maybe we will have experiences. In those times, we can't fix it, and we can't find the peace in the midst of it. Those are the times you're going to suffer. What can I say? And we can all have some of those times, right? Our ability to let go, to not cling, just to be present, have the heart open, has not reached whatever this big thing is. Maybe it's grown and grown. Look into your own life. Especially those of you it's not just through Dharma practice. Maybe if we just stick around on this earth long enough, hopefully we get some wisdom. But however you've gotten there, Dharma practice, therapy, or life experience, or whatever, can you find some situation in your life where maybe back when you were whatever, how old you were, used to really, really, really suffer around this, and maybe now, I don't suffer as much around this. Maybe just one thing in your life. I don't know, maybe you can't find anything. I think most people can probably find something. Say, I used to really, and it still kind of gets me, but it's better. We've learned and grown. We can find more and more peace in certain circumstances. But just to be respectful that, we want to honor those places where it's really suffering. And that's just when you need to bring the compassion in. It just says, I'm suffering. So we want to keep the compassion. So then the last piece, I'm just going to say a few more words and then we can just open it up. So I didn't actually plan out a whole talk here. I just had a few general things. So we kind of headed down a certain path, and here we are. So a question is, if we know what our aspirations are for our life, and if we start to then work to strengthen those and live more out of those places, and we start to see how we bring those intentions to meet the actual experiences of our life and see the times when we can be free and at peace, and when the times when we're struggling and all of that, then the last question I would just bring up, which was the fourth of the reflections, what are the things that will support us in our lives to deepen in this, to come to more freedom, to expand that circle out so it includes more and more of the experience of our lives, even it can be quite intense, pleasant and unpleasant, and we can still rest at peace. How do we keep expanding how much we can include in our lives? Right? And of course, the answer to that is there are many, many, many kind of practices we can do. There's not just one practice. You see for yourself all the different people who come here. And this is a great center, by the way. It has just such a nice feeling to it. I'm sure you all, maybe sometimes, I don't know, sometimes you show up the same place week after week, you don't notice as much. I don't know if that's true or not. But I come in, it's like, just, I don't know, the brick, and I notice the wood, and the feeling, and people seem nice, and I don't know, it just has a nice feeling to it. Right? So that's one thing you're doing. You're coming to a place like this. You probably wouldn't come if you didn't get something of benefit in your life. So that's a kind of a thing. Maybe you do certain kind of practices. I would say the form of the practices don't matter as much as there's really a couple of main things that I think are important to any practices that strengthen mindfulness and that cultivate the ability of the mind to be less distracted and more settled, which is sometimes called concentration, or the word samadhi is the Sanskrit and the Pali word samadhi. And I mentioned that because somebody had already mentioned to me, it was in my bio I see on your website, that I wrote a book, The Experience of Samadhi, about that particular aspect of meditation. So that's useful. We don't want to set up over-striving like, oh, okay, wait a minute, I've got to go get samadhi. I don't have enough samadhi. Now I'm creating another suffering because I've got to get there, and where I'm at is not okay. No, we want to be careful. What I would suggest is, it's that old cliche of, it is a cliche, be here now. So we just connect with whatever's going on in our experience. Again, hopefully not the most challenging experience, but in general with our experience. And we try to bring our mindfulness just to meet just whatever actually is happening in our lives. And try to as much as we can, come to some ease and relaxation and peace. And then from that place, not over striving or like, I got to get somewhere and where I'm at's not okay. Let's be okay where we're at, best we can. And then, yes, let's do practices that will head us then out of that place of non-striving to a place of where we can have more settledness, less distractedness of mind, more mindfulness. And so that's two. Mindfulness, ability to be less distracted. And the third is the opening of the heart. So what are the practices that can help us do those things? I can't tell. I mean, I have some ideas. We can have a whole day talking about practice. But for right now, I can just say, it's not a right or wrong. From what I can see, there are people who seem to go extremely, very deep into Dharma practice and have come to profound places of wisdom and love and liberation through every single style of Buddhism that I've seen. So I don't know what's the right practice for each of us. You have to kind of get that for yourself. I actually do have opinions, but I also am respected, which we can talk about sometime, but I'm very respectful really of all the approaches. There might be people here who are more kind of Zen practitioners. There might be more out of the Theravada Vipassana scene. That's kind of the world I live in. Some of you are attracted more to one of the many versions of Vajrayana, Tibetan Buddhism. Might be some Hindu practitioners sprinkled in a bit. There's other forms of Buddhism that are Chan, and there's Pure Land. There's a lot out there. If I didn't name yours, that's just, don't feel dissed by me. It's just I didn't name it. I think I'd like to stop here. And we have a few minutes. If you have any questions, that's fine. Or you may have just something to share or some comments too. That would be fine.
Yes, I'm interested in this, seeing aspiration perhaps as a form of insight in a way, and wondered how you might, since you've looked a lot at the integration of samadhi with insight, how you might suggest using samadhi in the service of that aspiration.
Well, having said that we don't want to set up our striving, and there's not any level of samadhi that I'm saying you've got to get, so I won't have to qualify it anymore. I can just say, I think samadhi is a big deal. If you look in the Pali suttas, for those of you who are familiar, those in the Theravada tradition, Pali language tradition, samadhi is a huge, big deal. It's the 8th and final element of the Eightfold Path. And I think it's just almost impossible to diminish how much stress is put on that. And remember, let me say this. There's many ways that this concentration samadhi can manifest, and they're all real experiences that people can have. And we're not going to have time to get into that's what my book was about. If you're interested, you could go into that. Maybe you've read it, I don't know. But so the way that a concentrated mind, the actual experience is quite a range. But there's disagreements out there about how much samadhi concentration you need in meditation. Some teachers won't emphasize it at all. They just say be mindful moment by moment the best you can. And that's all. That's it. And maybe you get automatically will get as much concentration as you need. Other teachers will kind of the other end of the spectrum. No. You've got to have not only a lot of samadhi, but you have to have these specialized states called jhana, which is a word some of you may have heard, but you may not have heard that word. And then I'm in the middle there, somewhere. So, but one thing they all agree on is the importance of a mind that's undistracted. No teachers say be distracted. And so, if we just think of it as being as present, as undistracted as possible, and let's take that as far as we can take it, and there's a lot we could say there then. That's what I want to encourage people to do. So when I teach retreats, for example, I teach in a style that doesn't separate out. So for some of you, this may not make sense, but it's a specialized question, but doesn't separate out the insight from the samadhi, actually. You can separate them out. And it often is separated out. They're not actually separated out. I don't know if that's for now, maybe that's
Sure, that's fine. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question about the different types of language you use to describe certain experiences. In what ways do you think the language you use is a help, and in what ways do you think it might be a hindrance in getting down to the actual experience?
The language in general language, or that I'm specifically things I said? Or both?
Both, probably.
Yeah.
I struggle with that at times.
So what I want to say, first of all, in general, is that it's true that language just inherently, it falls short of any experience. I mean, simple as, I touch this and I feel warmth. That's pretty clear language, but can I convey the experience? No. If you don't know warmth, it doesn't mean anything to you. So language already, but we got to use language the best we can. So we're making an assumption about some shared experiences here, first of all. So we want to just say, okay, I don't know what else we can do. Now then, in particular for language, I might use, all I would say is someone would have to point out something specific, because I don't, nothing's popping to mind. I think, I was so clear, and no, but seriously.
There's a certain, whenever you call touching the candle, when you describe it as warm, there's something you're accomplishing, but then there's also something that gets lost, because no language can really describe it.
Well, I'll take it even further than that. So the Buddha, if we go back to at least his words, I'm thinking in the Pali language tradition, so Theravada Buddhism, so there's lots of other Mahayana traditions out there too. I'm just not talking about those, but I'm not invalidating them. If you look in the Pali tradition, the Buddha's talking about this nibbana, Pali for nirvana, right? That's talking about, the highest truths of existence of the whole universe, right? And yet, when he came right down to it, he left it undefined, and he really said, all he could really say was, I teach, suffering's not the right word, it's dukkha in Pali, but we'll just use the word suffering. I teach suffering and the end of suffering. That can seem quite simplistic, right? But there's a lot there. I don't know the mind of the Buddha, but I'm thinking because our verbal, conceptual categories break down. And so the only thing he could say that was useful, so what it maybe comes down to is, what can we say that's useful? And if we keep it to that, so I'm not trying to convey, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but just popular. I'm not trying to convey warmth, but what I'm saying is, don't stick your finger in that. See that bright thing that we're calling a flame? Don't put your finger in there. That's useful. Just one moment, sir. Practice in a way that quiets the mind, samadhi, opens the heart, brings more awakeness, more freedom, more liberation, and then let's be as honest as we can, looking into our own life to see what are the results of my practice. And do I need to make, and it's fine. If you're not getting good results or if it's heading you in a bad direction, that's good information. Nothing went wrong. It's like, I'm not really so happy with the Tibetans, but I really need to be over here with the Zen folks. Or whatever. That's all I can say.
Question to your own aspirations in regards to not excluding any living being or not. In practice, in theory, it sounds great.
Right.
What I'm saying is, in practice, though, there are some people I know in my own experience. The world would be better off without them.
Yeah,
That's exactly how I feel. There's no way around it.
I agree with you, but that's not out of my aspiration.
So
may they be happy someplace else.
Really, because there's some people I could even practice it in proximity to them as long as I was safe from them.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? But once I'm under their power,
right?
How do you address that? Do you even imagine it?
No, well, look, I'm a human being. Yeah, I'm talking about my aspiration.
Yeah.
I don't actually know, but I'm imagining that there may be beings who really have come to a place where the heart is so open that no being is ever shut out. And I've actually touched into temporary states of consciousness like that when I was in that state. Now, but I'm not in that state right now. I'm just whatever. And listen, we all have the things that trigger me. One of the things that trigger me is actually I'm going to address it, come back in a moment, and then we'll end up on time. So most people who know me, I am mostly a pretty easygoing, loving, caring, good guy, mostly. But you know what? There's something about it. So I know this is a triggering thing for me. Something about driving in traffic. When some asshole cuts me off and then flips me off, it's a good thing they don't let us carry bazookas in cars. So I'm going to blow that fucker up. I'm just saying that's the felt sense, right? So I'm just being honest with you when something comes up. So I don't
know what you're talking about.
So we'll all have the things that goes past our edge. Now, when someone's zooming down the road, I'll give you, but let me just point out something here. I remember at a gym I used to be a member of, it was years ago, somebody was in there, there's a big jacuzzi hot tub, everybody's in there, and there's a guy sitting next to me, we're all just sitting there in the tub, and every once in a while he would kind of knock into me. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, it's like you're in my space, and I'm kind of sit there and he'd kind of go into me. It's like, don't you know you're like knocking in me? You must know that. I didn't say anything, but in my mind it wasn't pretty. I mean, I'm not supposed to say I'm the Dharma teacher, but I'm just telling you this is going on in my mind, and it was not a kind mind. And that went on for a while. And then when the guy got out, he turned out he didn't have any legs. And he was up on the steps going out. He was backwards, sort of pushing himself up, got him up into his wheelchair and wheeled off. Well, if any of you have ever been in a hot tub or a jacuzzi, you kind of float around. If you don't have any legs, he didn't have the stability. He was bobbing over. Everything changed when I saw what happened. The guy wasn't trying to get in my space. Yeah. He couldn't help it. He was bobbing around there without any legs. If we can shift so this might help a little bit. Rather than judging the action itself, which, listen, I'm not saying this is easy to do, that we can always do it, but we just try. We just don't take the hardest thing. Take something little. Rather than judging the action itself, try an experiment to say, what might be going on in someone to make them act this way? What might be that person? Maybe they're having a real bad day. Maybe their father used to beat the crap out of them every day, and now they're what? I don't know. That was kind of weird. I'm sorry, but I don't know. And maybe we can say, is there something that can help our hearts open? So that's one piece. Is what can help us. Completely separate from that is taking care of yourself, doing what you have to do in life. It doesn't mean you have to hang out with these people. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to get rid of them. There are people who should be locked away in jail and throw away the key. There's plenty of people that I would say the world's better off without them. I mean, to be honest, this is on your website. But I mean, come on, there are people like that, So we don't want to say I'm supposed to become this passive blob and be acceptance of everything as people trample all over me or hurt me. What I'm talking about is let's do the best we can with our inner state of being, and let's be wise about how we act in the world. So we're not reacting, but we have some awareness and we're being more responsive to life, but not reactive to life. And then we can make choices. And a lot of the choices might be, get me away from the situation, get me away from these people, I need to protect myself, whatever. I'm not telling people how they should act. I don't know how you should act in any particular situation. What I want to encourage you to do is get in touch with whatever your aspirations are. Hopefully they're for the good. If your aspiration is to become like, the evil conqueror of the earth, I'm not so up for that. But you're a Dharma guy, so I'm making some assumptions right here that, it's kind of heading in a wholesome direction. If your aspirations are up for creating less suffering for yourself and others and more happiness for yourself and others, then whatever that looks like, I want to encourage you to live out of that as deeply as you can and be smart in how you're living your life. Okay? Okay. So, all right. So it's 6 minutes till. We're supposed to be done by 5 minutes till, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's classing. Okay. Thank you
Can,
very much.
can I take 1 minute?
Yes, please.
Because I say that I show that we have a minute. I'm just
Here's my
asking.
rules.
Okay. So I wanted to have a little more time for the closing, but we literally have a minute. So here's what I would like to invite you to do. It's a little. I apologize for the short ending ceremony. I would like to invite you, if you're not already doing so, to, with your mindfulness, connect in with whatever's going on in your experience, your body, the heart, the mind, just your whole experience. And also to notice how you are being with your experience or how you're relating to whatever's going on. You know, there may be things, maybe from this talk or from your life that are maybe that you liked, it feels good. Notice there may be things did not like and maybe having some difficulty. Noticing that. See if there can be that sense of I would say a sense of allowing or letting yourself be, which is really a great place of self-acceptance. That's a tremendous act of kindness to ourselves. Rather than judging yourself or judging your experience in any way, just opening with that open heart, start writing with yourself, with whatever's happening in your experience, the best you can. Right? It's just letting ourselves be who we are. If there's something going on in your experience that you're not able to just be present with and with that open-hearted acceptance, then please bring some acceptance to that place in you. So we keep stepping back and let's accept that. If I can't accept that, then we accept that part of ourselves that can't. We keep find the place where we can hold ourselves with kindness, the best you can, and it's not always easy. And then finally, to end, I would like to ask you to take a few moments to reflect on your own good qualities. Right? You could have done anything this morning. You came to hang out with fellowship with other people in the Sangha, meditate, reflect, hear a talk, discussion on these Dharma topics. Right? This group is not about nothing. It's about something very specific. How to deepen in these beautiful qualities of the heart and the mind. And you showed up to do that. So that says a lot about each one of us. I think it's a healthy thing for us to reflect on our own good qualities now. So thank you for letting me hang out with you all today. It was great.
Announcements. We have a host, Mark.
I'm the host, so there's a little food out there and hot water. Have yourself a tea, just make sure you clean your cups with soapy water in the rack in the kitchen. There's, I think, a sign-up sheet on the credenza that you can add your name to the list if you want to keep be on the roster and get on email us. And some people meet at 12:30, often meet at 12:30 together to grab for lunch, so you can do that. I think that's everything. Oh yes, the Dharma Bowl. That people are welcome to make a contribution if they care to. Suggested $5 to $8, and I'll be walking around the Dharma Bowl if you care to give in support of the Sangha and the rental facility and our Dharma speakers and all of that.
Anyone else? One want you to make a note and maybe mark your calendar, April 18th here, an all-day Saturday meditation retreat, one-day meditation retreat. And we're going to work on that this afternoon. This jury committee is going to figure out the final format of that, but save the date. We've not done this before, so it could be very nice. Let's see. Also, we need to get out by like 12:40. I'd appreciate that because we have a meeting. I think that's it. Anything else? Well, thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Let's get in a circle.
That's nice. I just got invited to do a little close. So let me just reflect for a moment. Yes, so to close, I would like to invite you to consider that it's not possible to practice for yourself alone. It's literally not possible. You know, if you strengthen all these beautiful, wholesome Dharma qualities in yourself, of course it's for your benefit, but it also affects everyone that you come in contact with. So, yes, it's not possible to practice for yourself alone, and we can make that more conscious, which is traditionally called the dedication of merit. Merit just means goodness or good energy or good qualities. And so let us offer up, if there's been any merit, any good energy, good qualities, wholesome qualities that have come about by our time together today, let us offer it up. May it be for the benefit and liberation of all beings. Wishing may all beings everywhere be happy and peaceful, and may all beings come to an end of suffering.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.